Hey, you still want to go to America? He's like, yeah, let's go. And I was like, well, what about like paperwork and these kind of things? And he's like, well, we got a guy there. Don't worry about it.
Did you come here as like, oh, this is just like a movie? Or you were like, hey, like, what is this? It's not what I expected.
Because if you spend enough time around people that are all working out, feeling good, healthy, exercising, making money, at some point, anyone that's somewhat smart is going to start saying, well, maybe I should start doing some of this stuff.
What's the best structure to pay salespeople?
My guy put a sign in the yard. So part of the post was why they're using a Florida licensed board.
That's why truly successful people don't mind recession, because recession weeds out.
When we came out there in the hospital and we popped out, there was not a sign that says life is fair. Okay. As a matter of fact, there should be a sign there saying life's not fair.
Welcome back, everyone, to Business Hats Podcast. Today I have an amazing guest. Kirt Linington is the owner of Linear Roofing. He's been in corporate America for about 20 years. LA Fitness is where he started. He's immigrant like myself, have amazing perspective on life, business, and leadership. Take a listen, enjoy. Kirt, I actually never heard about your story on immigration. You moved here in 1999. What was the circumstances or motivation to move to the United States?
Yeah, great question. I grew up in a pretty non-structured, struggling environment. Went to 17 schools growing up, and a lot of challenges growing up. And obviously, as a poor kid in different world, different country, just like you. You grow up watching these movies and seeing the Hollywood sign in the background, and you just dream of this life that people are living that you're not living, based on your own situation. Even though as I matured and grew older, I realized that there were people living a good life where I was just never in those circles. So, you just always and there was never really a strategy growing up to leave the country at all. As a matter of fact, my strategy growing up was just to get a job and pay the bills, right? And one thing led to the next, and I had this buddy who knew some friends in America, and he's like, hey, do you want to go? And I was dating this girl, a ballerina. And she was one of the best in the world, traveling the world, senior soloist, and I've been to a lot of ballets. And I didn't want to break up with her, so I told him no. Like 2 years later, we broke up. I called him up. I said, hey, you still want to go to America? He's like, yeah, let's go. And I was like, well, what about like paperwork and these kind of things? And he's like, well, we got a guy there. Don't worry about it. Just get a visitor's visa and go. And I'm like, I sort of know someone here. Like maybe we should talk to them here. He's like, no, we'll get it there. Anyway, one thing, next thing you know, we're on a plane. We're landing in LA. His buddy picks us up. And I didn't know his buddy, and his buddy's like, hey, where am I dropping your buddy? They dropped me off in like Riverside on the side of the highway at like Motel 6. Almost got run over because I was looking the wrong way crossing the street because we're the opposite way. My first experience was staying in a Motel 6 in Riverside. Anyway, managed to catch a cab out to a youth hostel in Hermosa Beach. And I was staying in a hostel at $10 a night. I only came with $700, so it wasn't going to last very long. So I had to figure some stuff out. So I landed up working under the table for a company that worked in an LA Fitness, and I was a personal trainer.
Wow.
And so I was getting paid cash.
Love it. How old were you at the time?
26.
What was your biggest shock about the United States? Was it positive? Was it negative mostly? Did you come here as like, oh, this is just like a movie? Or you were like, hey, like, what is this? It's not what I expected.
So right off the bat, I'm a big car guy. So like, Mustangs come around the corner and I'm like, wow, seen a Mustang. Because back then there was no Mustangs in South Africa. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, damn, that's beautiful, right? So I was highly impressed by some of these things immediately. I actually share a story. Myself and my buddy, my first means of transportation was a bicycle from Target, right, for like $70 or whatever it was. And we used to go to the movies. We were at this time we were living in an apartment with 4 other people and sleeping on an air mattress and personal training and these kind of things. And we didn't have much money but we used to go to the movies in mid-20s, go to the movies on our bicycle. We'd park our bikes in the back and lock them up. We didn't want anyone to see us pulling up on our bicycles. It's not a good look for the ladies. And we one night we were going home. I was looking at the stars, and I said to my buddy, "You know what I've realized so far on this trip is that it doesn't matter where you go in the world. You're not going to find yourself going somewhere, because that was my whole thing. I'm going to go find myself and figure out what I want in life, right? Like, you don't need to do that. You don't need to escape from your realities to find yourself. It doesn't matter where you go in the world. People are people. There's good people. There's bad people. There's shady people. There's, it doesn't matter where you are. And truthfully, under the right circumstances and the right work ethic and right influences, you can probably be successful in a lot of places around the world. No doubt, there are certain challenges depending on where you live. But I realized that people are the same wherever you go.
Love it. I have almost identical story. I just want to comment. When I come here in 2005, I bought a bike, and $10 used bike, in a town with a population 1,500 in Eagle River, Wisconsin. And I got on that bike. It was a summer camp. I was kitchen staff for 3 months in a summer camp. It was a student exchange program, and I stayed after. And I got that on a bike, and I went on the road. And I remember I loved everything about it. I loved the road. I'm like, this is awesome road. The population 1,500. They have a movie theater with 6 different rooms. Like my city in Russia with the population 100,000 have like 2 theaters, and they have like 2 in each. And like infrastructure was amazing. And I'm like, I want to live here. I see it. And I remember after that, after 3 months in Wisconsin, we got to Chicago, and we were homeless. We were living in the park, and during the day, we're sitting on a bench in Lake Zurich in Chicago area. We're sitting on the beach area and watching cars driving. Just like you said, Mustangs. I remember BMW 5 Series just came out, brand new. I've never seen them in Russia, but I see it here. And we're like, how much these people make that they have all these brand new cars? Didn't know nothing about it. Very cool. What's different about the United States? What you cannot get here that used to get here? For me, it was food, for example. I remember there's few things that was good, but I hated breads, because bread is like United States bread sucks. Yeah. Johnny Harris just did an amazing story on it on YouTube, comparing like French bakeries and United States bakeries. For me, that was the biggest shock. What was for you?
Something that was in some ways amazing to me is if you think about here in America, like there's a shopping center here, there's a strip center here, there's a this here, there's a that here. In South Africa, if there's like a big mall and then all of a sudden another really big mall opens up in close proximity, one closes down. They can't both coexist. Like in America, you can like
because of buying power.
Yeah, no doubt. It's numbers, right? And in America, I mean, you can have a strip center here with all these things, and half a mile down the street, you can have another strip center with the exact same things in it, and both centers are going to flourish, right? Yeah. So in some ways, people are a little spoilt in the numbers and their ability to be successful because in other places, you now truly have to give better service. You now truly have to be much better than the other guy down the street because one of you is going to close, right?
But that's why truly successful people don't mind recession, because recession weeds out the weak and lazy and those who can. I mean, we're supposed to race to the top, and we're supposed to compete with each other for better ourselves. But when it's easy and low-hanging fruit, when everybody gets lazy, essentially.
Yeah.
And
so entitled. I remember the gym that I worked in, the guy was a general manager, young guy, Scott Winslow, nice guy. He owns a yoga studio today. And this guy was making $10,000 a month.
That's a lot of money.
And I was this personal trainer making like $20 a session, right? And I'm like, man, this guy's rich. Like, this guy's rich. Like, he's driving a Lexus. He's got a beautiful girlfriend. Comes to work in a suit every day. And I'm like, I want to be like this guy. Like, I want to make $10,000 a month. I want to be rich. It's just crazy. Like, but that's just a testament to where I came from and what I was used to. So to me, seeing that life, this guy was super rich.
Love it. But do you still agree that the United States is one of the best countries to become an entrepreneur, to become a business owner, business perspective? Or you think you can make it in many places in the world?
I think for a lot of people that have sort of figured it out, like I think once you've got to a point in life where you sort of figured out the algorithm of life and the things that you need to do and what's important, you could probably be successful in a lot of places in the world. However, some may take a little more effort, but you understand the formula. So you're going to be able to go repeat it. It doesn't matter where you go, right? Like I just shared with the stores, like you could go open a store in South Africa, but you're going to have to work twice as hard to make sure you beat the other guy to win. But you understand what it takes to win at this point. So I think once you've figured it out, you could probably win in most places that you go to, but there could be varying levels of success just based on volume, right?
But it's still easier in the United States to open a business.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's the American dream, opening a business. Most countries, it's got nothing to do with opening a business. It's got to do with putting food in your mouth. I mean, so yeah.
Love it. You already mentioned LA Fitness. Let's talk about that journey. You've been there almost for 20 years.
Yes.
How did you start? How did it end? How did you grow so fast? Because I know you went all the way to the top. Talk to me about that journey.
So back when I came to the country, you had to go get a Social Security card to get a driver's license.
It's still like that today.
Is it?
Yeah.
Even as a visitor? So I was on a visitor's visa, right, for 6 months. So even as a visitor back then, I think it changed. You'd have to go
It might get temporary, but I think for the most people, you have to have social.
Okay. So back then, I got a Social Security card that said not valid for employment on it. Mm-hmm. So I went to Kinko's and I whited that out. I colored it in and did the whole thing, and I made it look like a regular Social Security card. Damn me, I'm terrible, I know. But I did what I did.
You did what you had to.
Yeah. And I handed it to LA Fitness, and I went to work. And I paid my taxes, even though I wasn't legal. I lived like a good citizen. And one day when I became legal, I paid $1,000 fine. But that's how I did it.
Wow. And how long you stayed there?
I was there just under 20 years. And I started as a personal trainer, and then I moved in as a salesperson and a sales manager and then a general manager. It took me 13 months to become a district vice president, which was the fastest. It took me 13 months. The fastest guy before me took 7 years to become a district vice president. Wow. I remember I told them I wanted to grow in the company, all the rest of it. And the one guy said, why don't you come to the general manager meeting, right? And see what it's like. So I went to the general manager meeting, and you had all the general managers there and the VPs in the front, and they're hosting this meeting. And what I was doing was gauging the room. And I was like, man, if these guys are GMs and these guys are VPs, man, I got this.
If they can do it, I can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Not saying I was better. Sure. I was just saying, hey, with my tenacity.
Well, you believed in yourself,
yeah.
And you compare yourself to others. And I know the feeling. I love the story about Social Security, and I just remember mine. I never ever shared it. But when I got to the country, I did get Social Security. But my visa was expiring in 4 months. So after that, you don't have authorization to work. And with Social Security, you can get most jobs. And I remember 2 years later, I got married, and I applied through my wife to become a citizen. But for about 2 years, I could not work in the country. And you're not going to say, like, what are you going to get? Government support? And I'm not going to go back either. So I remember I lost a job at a cabinet shop. And for 2 weeks, I was unemployed. And I did not know, economy was shit. It was like 2008. I went to Department of Labor, like labor, whatever. So pretty much apply for, I don't know what's the name of it's a government organization. And if you're looking for a job, they'll find you a job. So I remember, look at the application. I did have Social Security, but they ask you, do you have authorization to work? And there's numbers, and they're literally made up the numbers. And I got actually the nastiest job in my life from that referral. So I made up numbers, like first two, it was letters, and then after that numbers, I'm like, A, B, whatever. That's my authorization of work. I did not have anything. Sure. So I gave them social, and I had an interview with a police officer in Atlanta, Georgia, who had an installation business on the side. He was investigator for police.
Wow.
So for about 3-4 months, I put insulation in the walls. So brand new construction, I put insulation, nasty job. And I remember he met me at this gas station. And during the interview, he goes on the rant how he doesn't hire illegals. He's a police officer and he does it the right way, that, he pays the right wages and stuff. And his competition uses illegal immigrants and he's not going to do it. And I'm sitting there like, yes, I don't blame you. I understand. Sir. And I'm there. I don't have right to work. I don't have authorization. I made it up. But I had 2 kids at home. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm getting this job. I don't care. I don't care if I go to jail for applying at work when I'm not supposed to. But it's the right thing to do. I'd rather do that than get a government check.
Or stand on the side of the street with a sign. That's a whole controversial topic.
But you know what about it? I went to Honduras and Mexico last year. And have you ever noticed like homeless people in other countries, they work for their money. Like they play, like I remember seeing in Honduras, people on the crutches playing with a soccer ball.
Correct.
And people give them money. So they give you tricks and stuff. They wash windows and stuff. I mean, think about that hustle. They're homeless. They're hustling for their money. Where's the last time you've seen a homeless person in America hustling for money?
No.
Because it's hangouts.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's one of those things, and once again, I love America, I love American people, so none of this is like, hey, I'm special and they're not, and I'm better. That's not the case. However, based on certain environments that we came from, if you came here and you applied a certain work ethic, you'd accelerate past a lot of people quickly, because a lot of people were born a little so spoilt just based on their environments, and getting work was easy and making the dollar was easy, and then you get a guy that comes in from another country that it was really, really hard. So when they see this opportunity to make all this money and do this well, and they apply themselves, they surpass those people. It doesn't mean anyone else is bad, and it doesn't mean that they're better. It's just their relative or their truth of growing up is different to theirs, so therefore they accelerate faster.
I see a lot of entrepreneurs coming from fitness industry. A lot of big names, like Bedros, one of the guys recently. Yes. I've been listening.
Nice guy.
Very nice guy. Very smart. Is it because of the discipline, consistency? There's something about fitness industry that helps people later in their entrepreneurial journey. What did it give you? Because I see you in roofing now, but you spent so many years in LA fitness. What helped you in life, I guess, what you learned there?
Yeah, so I think there's 2 sides to people that work in the fitness industry. I think there's those that work in the fitness industry where it's just cool and they just want to like bang checks and have fun. And, you hear about all the trainers, sleeping with their clients and just all this nonsense, right? And then you get those people that I think work through and or past that if they stay in it long enough. But one of the things about the fitness business is that like after I left and went into roofing full time, I made a post on social media that it was the first time in 20 years that I'd not worked on New Year's Day.
Wow.
Which is just interesting because I'd worked 6 days a week for almost 20 years. And so I think, that's your truth. That's what you're used to. If you think about when you go work out, a lot of times, if you go to that gym, you'll see those sales guys. You see them there early in the morning. And then if you ever get to a point where you're doing 2-a-days and you're there 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night, that guy's still there. Mm-hmm. Like he's working night and day to try and get commissions to earn a living, at least the good ones, right? And my theory when I did it, specifically when I was younger, is if I can always be here when no one else is here, I get the low-hanging fruit and I get those phone calls that are coming in that other people aren't getting because they're not here, right? So there was no overtime. I wasn't making any more money, but it was just about placement and opportunity. So I think, hey, and then obviously depending on which group you came from, where I came from, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about building teams. I learned a lot about sales training. I learned a lot about teaching people how to overcome objections, teaching people, all these kind of things. And then if you take the motivational side of fitness, looking, feeling good and applying work ethic to that, in some ways, a lot of people say, if you look at most successful people, their morning routine or their basic disciplines are the foundation for their success, right? So if those people are in that business and they're also living that, because there's also a lot of people in the health club business that aren't living that, right?
100%.
Specifically on the sales side. Maybe on the training side there's more, but on the sales side, not a ton of them are really in shape and living that life because really they're working so much. So I don't know if you know, Patrick Bet-David also was in the health club.
I know.
Your next 5 moves.
Yes, sir. And I do have a question about it. Let's come back to it a little bit later, but I want to elaborate a little bit more on this trend. In the roofing industry, I actually see a lot of sales guys and sales organizations, roofing organization, recruiting people from fitness industry. Lifetime guys are doing it. There's a lot of companies that core culture, core team is ex-trainers, ex-fitness guys, which is great. And I do see a lot of salespeople are hitting the gyms. What do you do to contribute to your sales guys? Do you motivate them to work out? Do you do anything internally to build that culture?
So I'm a little older now. I'm almost 50, 49. Turned 50 in April.
Oh, you look great, man.
Thank you. And, just part of our culture and part of what we preach and talk about all the time is an expression that you've probably heard me say is there's no such thing as business problems, just personal problems that roll into the business. And so if you're shitty at home, you're shitty at work. You're messy at home, you're messy at work. You're, all these things. So I'm a firm believer that I have to live a personal lifestyle that all my people look up to. And showcase that, hey, I'm a good leader and I actually do the things that I say to them. And so by leading by example, a lot of our leaders lead by example. And so we don't really say to people, hey, when you come work here, you need to be healthy and fit and you got to do all these things. It's actually not a prerequisite to come and work with us. However, if you spend enough time around these people, eventually you start becoming like them, right? And so that's probably more is that it starts from the top. And we believe that looking after yourself leads to success. And if they believe that it's real from the leader down, then they start saying, wow, maybe I'm onto something here. Maybe I should go work out. Because if you spend enough time around people that are all working out, feeling good, healthy, exercising, making money, at some point, anyone that's somewhat smart is going to start saying, well, maybe I should start doing some of this stuff.
Love it. What do you say to someone who neglected their health for a long time? Maybe a business owner who, have kids, have business, overwhelmed, haven't been in gym for 5 years, who doesn't have example. Like if you work at a company where the owners works out, other team players works out, but I deal with a lot of guys who just don't have good friends or all their friends are there and they don't have anyone they look up to. How do you get back on track?
Yeah, so it depends where you want to go. So it's about understanding people's goals and what it is that they want to achieve. And if you've discussed their goals and you understand what they want to achieve, then I think it's an easy conversation of like ABC equals D, 1 + 1 = 2. It's a simple path, right? But then there's also the medical side, the medical benefits of why you should be exercising or so on and so forth. And those people that don't want to work out, I'm okay with it if you don't want to work out. However, understand that I live by an expression that says you can't manage my checkbook until you can manage your own well. So you can't lead others until you can lead yourself well first. You can't just be a leader. You have to be a good follower first. So if I understand your goals and where you want to go, you're going to have to create upward mobility, which means you're going to have to learn to work with many different personality types. See, a lot of people become leaders and then they manage everyone the same way, and they wonder why they can't build a team. However, if you've become really good at managing yourself and you're living what you want other people to live and you want that team to be successful, then it's a no-brainer that these are the things that you're going to need to do because you're going to keep failing as a leader. So if I understand your goals, right, and I understand where you want to go, and I understand that you're going to have to recruit, train, and develop a team, let me ask you, if you were you and you were going to hire you to follow you as opposed to all these other folks, how would you feel?
I love it. I love that question.
I mean,
Yeah, if you're not going anywhere, I get it.
right.
It's a great question.
If
Great perspective.
If I don't see that you're going anywhere and I can't see myself growing through you, because so leadership or followers are a gift to you by those that follow you. You're not a leader because someone gave you the title. They still have a choice to follow you. People follow you for two reasons, skill set and character. So in most sales environments, when we interview with someone, so let's say I interview with this person that's overweight, right? Mm-hmm. They obviously know the industry, they understand sales. So they're gifted with their mouth, right? So when I sit with you, I make a decision. You have the skill set, and therefore I will follow you because I want to be like you from a skill set perspective. The next thing is character. The problem in most sales environments, roofing companies, roofing industry, is that the character is flawed. A lot of people have been around for a while. They've got the skill set. They know how to do the job. They understand the industry. And in a lot of cases, they know a lot, right? They're like, I know it all, right? But they wonder why they can't build a team. It's because there's a flaw in character, which is like, can I trust you? So as they spend more time with you, they're making non-conscious decisions about whether they can trust you or not, right? A lead came in, all of a sudden it turned out blah, 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 and then the manager takes it and does it, but it should have gone to a sales guy. You know, these little things that happen over time that people get like, it's like, I don't know if I could trust you, right? And so if you're the leader and you have all these followers, you may do okay for a while, but they're eventually going to leave you. They're actually all out the door. They're just waiting for something better. That's why they haven't left you. They're still with you because they need a paycheck. But the minute the right thing and opportunity comes along, I like you from a skill set perspective, but I can't trust you. So leadership is a gift to you by those that choose to follow you based on skill set and character.
Beautiful said. And I deal with it a lot with the brand new owners. I do weekly consulting calls, and a lot of guys who just started a business and they've never hired anyone. For some reason, we have this mentality, and they'll get to it eventually on their own, but we have this mentality when you open that LLC, when you become CEO, like what's on paper, the title that looks so good. Now they ask a question, where do I find salespeople? Or nobody wants to work for me. And I often tell them, why would anyone want to work with you? So just because you're owner of the business, you're asking someone to drop their dreams to come build yours, but what have you done for them? And the conversation never nice, because I don't know how to say those things nicely. I ask them, what do you have for them? Do you have a vehicle? Do you have any investment in that person? Did you build any program? No, I didn't, but it's going to be like commission. I'll pay them more than competition. It's not about pay. They have to trust you and your character that you will take care of them. And so far, you did not say one thing that would convince me that you're actually going to take care of them. You want them to take care of you, but it goes other way around. So guys, if you're that person who've never hired a sales rep, pay attention, take notes what Kirt just said, because there's so much wisdom in it. People don't get it. They think that I've done it for 10 years. I finally opened my business. People just need to follow you. You have to earn their trust.
Yeah. They figure out over time. It's just like relationships. Like you're young, you start this relationship, you meet this girl, and you want to impress her, right? And you put on all the shows and the bells and the whistles, and you do all this stuff. The question is, how much of it is real? How long can you maintain that persona that you're putting on? Because at some point, the tire hits the road and she figures out who you really are, right? And you got to know that the same applies in a business relationship. And if you can't sustain personal relationships, you won't sustain business relationships. Interesting stat at LA Fitness. It's not really a stat. It's something we observed. In most cases, when it's real and you're doing the right things and you truly are helping people, and you get to a point in your life where you figured out the formula and you just wake up and do things because it's what you do and it's what keeps sustainable long-term success, right? Well, a lot of folks, like in roofing, come in and they're successful, and then all of a sudden they're business owners. You know, specifically in Texas, because you don't need a license, right? Barrier of entry is so low. You just need, go register your business and now you're a roofer, right? And we've had a lot of guys do that. So same at LA Fitness, right? People would leave and they would go work at other companies. I always said, give them 12 months and they'll want to come back. Because most of them will go to other places and adopt our mentality and attitude within that organization. So they scale in that organization fast. Everyone loves them. But the problem is, unless those things are permanent, you become like all those other people around you, because there's a lot more of them than there are of you. You're the new guy. You're bringing in the new stuff. Mm-hmm. So over time, you eventually get weaker and weaker and weaker because you become like those people around you. And then you wonder what happened. Well, because you're not the same person that you were while you were working with me, because I held you accountable. I motivated you, and I meant it, and it was real. And I could keep doing that year in and year out because I understand the formula, right? And it's real. And same thing in the roofing. We've had so many guys leave us or we've terminated, and they've gone to go open their own roofing companies. And there's not many of them that make it. Most guys in the roofing industry, simply by design, because of the way the insurance works and because you pay materials and these kind of things, will be able to, from a motivation perspective, initially leave you and go do really well. They will. They don't know how to lead teams long-term. They don't know how to take care of the back end of the business, control systems and process long-term. So therefore, in a lot of cases, they could probably get away with it for 2 to 3 years until it all comes crumbling down. And we've already seen it with a few folks that left us that actually did really, really well. And today, everyone's leaving them. Because remember, if you spend enough time with them, you start learning who they really are.
Awesome answer. PBD described you as a handsome man. That's how he remembers you. So my next question is, do pretty people have advantage in sales?
You know, I think as a guy, I mean, maybe if you're selling to women, I guess, and maybe as a woman, if you're selling to men, because I think people, there's a lot of studies. I think there's a study out there on a lot of the high successful CEOs are taller men, which is an interesting thing too, right? So listen, here's what I think. I think there's definitely advantages in sales for people that look after themselves. Meaning you dress sharp, you look sharp, you got good teeth, you
take care of yourself.
You're well manicured. You take care of yourself. You're not sloppy. I think people are attracted to that because those in today's age, a lot of people don't. And you know, it's same as money. I said you don't have to have money to be clean. You don't have to have money to be neat. You don't have to have money to have a clean car and a clean house. You know.
So true.
I think you definitely do create some advantages for yourself because remember, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and also the person in front of you is shaping an opinion of you based on many non-auditory things. And there's some advantages to that in business as opposed to just good looking. No doubt. Do I think extremely good looking people, everyone look at them because it's very pleasing to the eye?
They get attention right away. It's just no numbers game, but they still have to close after.
Of course. You can't be a dummy, right? So you'd have to be good looking and at least improve your game. Now you do have an added advantage, but I believe that every other person out there can create other added advantages for themselves if they don't have that. And that is get into shape, dress better. There's a lot of other things you can throw in there to create the same advantages.
What do you think about CrossFit?
You know, I've had a bad back for quite a while now. So when CrossFit became really popular, I really wasn't able to participate in it as much as I would have liked to. I think I've always felt this. You go into a gym, these personal trainers are taking these customers through these moves, and I'm looking at them and I'm like, what is that move? It looks so technical, and like most people just need high reps, decent weight, resistance, consistency, somewhat consistent eating, and they're going to get pretty good results. You know, you should only be doing some of that stuff if you truly are practicing to compete in some sports events. You want to create more explosiveness. You want to add more power. I think there's value to all exercise. I just don't think everyone out there should be participating in this extreme technical stuff that they could probably get from really basic exercises done right.
Loved. I've been, LA Fitness. I actually been members of LA and then Lifetime later. But then I love the journey of CrossFit. It's only been around for like 12 years. I love the community, and I loved how CrossFit skyrocketed, like in worldwide phenomena, and what they've built. Because I've never ever seen such a friendly competition environment. What I love about it, and one of the reasons I go to, like you go to Lifetime, everybody's looking at the mirror, everybody's like self-centered.
Yeah.
At a CrossFit, it's community. You will be the last guy finishing workout, and you'll have 10 people around you like cheering you for. And when you doing, exercise next to 40-year-old mother of 3 and she can do more pull-ups than you do, is like, what is it? Like, but it's motivating to work out with such a supportive crowd. And if you look at a competition of CrossFit, that's what I've never seen anywhere up until CrossFit is, they're all there for the win, but they all cheer for each other, like truly.
Sure.
Even if it's head to head, like in most sports, like you want to show your dominance. You win and you're like, yeah, me, you standing over whoever you defeat. Here, you all having fun. And I love that. And I transfer it to the business. And I feel like if roofing industry learned that from CrossFit, it will be amazing because it's abundance mentality. It's you against you. There's plenty of jobs for everyone. We don't need to fight. We don't need to argue. We don't need to belittle each other. We're in it. And that's what I personally love about CrossFit. And typical gyms like LA or Lifetime, they're a little bit more self-centered. And that's my take.
A little bit of backing into our business at Linear Roofing is, so we have this culture where we help each other. We don't split commissions. So a lot of companies and places, when someone
Actually, I have this question. Let's talk about it since you brought it up. What's the best structure to pay salespeople?
It's extremely controversial in our industry.
Sure. That's why I asked.
Well, here's what I say to folks, and sometimes I get asked this when I speak from the audience, and I say, look, everything I'm going to tell you today is really what works for me. I'm not saying it's the best. I'm not saying it's the only way. I'm not even saying it's the way. It's what
just
works
how you do it.
For me. So I don't necessarily believe that there's a best way because there's so many other factors in how they run the business. How much support is the salesperson getting? What part of the process do they actually have to cover? And each company's different and they have different things in place. So I think, that pay structure can be really relative to, all the systems around that business to say, hey, here's what's worth it. For example, we have guys leave us and then they go open their own company and then all of a sudden they charge less overhead and they pay them more commission, right? And it's like, yeah, I've been doing it long enough to know that you can't scale a business under that pay structure. You have to be, so you got to say to yourself, where's the value to the salesperson? Is the value in the paycheck only, which would probably be somewhat short-term? Or is the value in a long-term career that's sustainable with growth in the organization that you're in? So I think in some cases it depends on what's important to the individual, right? Because once again, if you're a guy that just does not care about anything, just wants to make the maximum dollar, and that's it, then maybe that guy that's offering you more money is the place for you to go, right? We run the industry standard old school program, which is the 10-50-50. Now we have a sliding scale at 40 when you first come in, and you have to graduate to that. But I know there's a lot of guys out there that preach that you need to put plans in place that have all these sliding scales and there's got to be opportunity to make more and, all these kind of things. But same thing. If I say to you that you can go to another company that has a higher pay structure and all these sliding scales and all these things, yet I can bring you into a culture that really cares about you, trains you, looks after you, supports you, and these kind of things, and it's slightly less, I'd be willing to bet you'd still make more money working for me than you will at the other company, right? So, because that's the other question. I was at an event recently. There was a question posed to the roofers. You have your company, you're doing well, competition comes to town, they pitch all your people, offer them, because this is the new thing in the industry now. Everyone's running around saying, well, if you're really good, we're going to offer you shares and ownership, right? That's the new bait thing, right? But what the average person doesn't understand is that unless you really know how some of that stuff works, you may never see anything anyway. Meaning it's
just a promise.
It truly is a carrot, right? Quick example. With LA Fitness, we used to do acquisitions. I traveled with these guys in the Midwest. We bought a company. I traveled with the upper leadership, right? And they all had shares, and they were waiting for a distribution to come. About 7 months after the transaction, they got a letter stating that there are no distributions at this time. Because in a lot of cases, some business owner, it's like, have an idea, build a business, pull the money out and sell. So they debt load the business just before it sells. So that's not...
I get it.
So there's no distribution.
Of course.
Right? So there's many ways to skin a cat, and there's a lot of smart people out there. So when someone says, hey, I'm going to give you some shares, and I'm going to give you this and this and this, once again, it's going to come down to that trust thing and who you're working for and who's going to follow through. When Tony came and started with us, I told him, I said at one point, I said, hey, do the right things, help us grow the business, I'll tie you into the business. I tied him into the business, we did a transaction, and he received his money. We do everything we say we're going to do, right? We're not perfect, right? Things do happen. Mistakes do happen. But if we say we're going to do something, we do it. And I preach the same thing with our project managers and customers. If we tell a customer we're going to do something, and I find out we didn't do it, I'll do it even though we lose money, because that's what we said we were going to do. That's the way we operate, because that one deal, it's not going to kill us. Anyway, I can go on tangents.
Of course, no, you're good. How are you different from your competition? What truly separates you in the eye of the consumer? What do the customers get? I'm not even talking about like pay structure within. You have amazing culture, we established that, but you have 4.8 stars on Google, which is amazing based on the size and based on how many reviews you have and all of that. But how different what's the value proposition to the homeowner? How are you different for them as far as like product goes?
Yeah. I can't say there's a ton of difference. I mean,
you're in commodity business.
Yeah. There's a lot of people out there saying, well, we do this, we do that.
We do this better.
This. Listen, it's debate.
I love it. I love how humble you are about it, because most people, they claim that we're better than anyone, we're the best, and people should hire us because of this, and this. And I love it. I love that you cannot even identify.
Well, they are, listen, there are things we do well. Mm-hmm. But really, we didn't come in and invent the business. We didn't change the business. In my opinion, we just came in and did certain things a little better, right?
A little better.
That's it. Just a little better. Does that make sense?
Yes,
like
it makes perfect sense.
Response rate to customers. Our launch-off meeting in January for 2023. I mean, we had this big old meeting, and I actually ended the meeting talking about a couple of things that were important to me. And one of the things I spoke about was reviews. And I shared with the entire organization, I said, just know this, we've always lived that when we started the business, we said, mean what you say what you mean, nothing more, nothing less, right? That's it. It's a simple concept. If you say you're going to be somewhere, be there. If you say you're going to do something, do it. Is it a perfect world? Have we done everything perfectly? No. It's construction, things happen, but it's how we handle it afterwards that's most important, right? So once again, it's just about putting things in place to make you more effective, more efficient, doing the same thing that everyone else is doing. I mean, we could get into the shingle debate, we could get into an underlayment debate, we could get into all these other things, right? There's a certain handful of, in my opinion, good, better, best in the shingle world, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We're not going to throw names out. We're just going to say, hey, in our opinion, there's certain tier ones, there's certain tier twos, there's certain tier threes based on history. And we prefer to try and stick to some of the main ones, and we believe we're putting a good product on their roof. Listen, when we first started, and I'm not saying they're a good or a bad shingle, but we were Tamco Pro, and I paid $1,200 to become a pro. It had nothing to do with my roofs.
Don't you hate it?
I didn't know any better, right? We were new. I didn't know much about roofing, and I'm like, man, I could become a Tamco Pro. And so I called around and I said, how can I become a Tamco Pro? And they said, well, it'll cost you this, and this, and this. And I paid the fee, and I walked around with my chest out that I was a Tamco Pro. And I'm not saying that's a good or a bad thing. I'm just saying that's how I felt.
But later you realize how full of BS all of this is, because like I had this very similar story. I paid $700 for one of the companies to become their pro. I'm not going to mention them. And then they send me their yard sign with my company on it saying that I'm certified, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I felt like it was a 7th place trophy, right? Like you got a trophy for nothing. I'm like, is that what everybody, because if I get it, that means everybody else is getting it. I want to earn the first place. I want to earn something.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't like it.
Yeah. So I guess what I'm getting at is I could sit here and say that Linear Roofing only uses this shingle, which is the best. And I do personally have feelings about better ones, and I think everyone does.
Who makes the best shingle?
Yeah, good question. Not sure.
In your opinion, what do you guys install?
Okay,
what's your best seller? What's your best seller?
Listen, do you realize that I gave you an answer that would create such a stir?
Why?
It just would.
I'm going to find out. And I'm going to put here like what they install. I'll go and I'll find out.
It would create such a stir. Anyway, listen, same thing.
So what you're telling me, product does not matter?
No, product matters. Absolutely, product matters. No doubt. I just didn't want to get into that debate.
Got it?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I've watched some of yours.
It wouldn't be debate. It would be just like, we like this. And I'm like, okay.
Well, I guess some people say, well, put the facts next to each one.
Do you still install Tamco?
If a customer asks.
Got it.
If they say they absolutely want it, I'll tell them what we have and what we generally feel is better. But if they still insist on it, yeah, absolutely.
I've heard, I've heard, let's move from the shingles.
Yeah, good idea.
I've heard, certainty for the win. I've heard accusations of your guys eating deductibles. And honestly, all the big players have that accusation. Every single company is like, and I get them in DMs all the time. Like, oh, be careful with that guy. They're like, I did Raymond was here, Wendell.
Perimeter.
Perimeter. Yeah. And immediately, there are guys eating deductibles right after the interview. What do you answer to those? And what do you do internally about deductibles?
Yeah. So there probably was a time where it was okay, and then the law changed in Texas. And then there probably was a time period where we were still figuring out how to catch it all and improve process and systems and these kind of things. And so has it happened? Absolutely. It's not something we condone right now. It's not something, we do have processes in the office to make sure, and we every now and then run reports on deductibles to make sure that stuff's not slipping through the cracks. Yeah. Because, when you get so big and you have so much going on, you're going to have to inspect. And so we do. We run a report every now and then. If we catch some stuff, we handle it. We deal with it. We let them know it's unacceptable. We pay closer attention to that person. It's our goal not to do it at all, right? But sometimes you get a brand new guy start, something happens, he hears something, he says something, it slips through, we catch it, we pull him aside, we have a chat with him, we fix it. It's not something we condone. It's not something we teach. It's not something we preach. There was a time in our early days where we taught how to get around it and how to avoid it and all the rest of it. Absolutely. But as you grow and as you start realizing that you got all these people working for you and you have a sense of responsibility to look after the organization, then you've got to start doing things better. You've got to improve. You've got to grow. And anyone out there, once again, this message is not that we're perfect, because we're not. We still make mistakes. But for those people out there that want to grow, It's about realizing that, hey, here are our gaps. Here are our areas of opportunity. How do we improve on them? What systems and process can we put in place to improve this stuff? Because we all started somewhere. Just like when I came to the country, man, I was illegal. I did something I shouldn't have. I shouldn't have done, right? But then I realized, and I make the right moves, and I improve, and I change, and it's all the path of growth. You look at most successful people out there, and you dig way back, you're going to find some shit that they're not proud of that they did, that they need to change if you want to grow.
But the best way about it is to put it on sleeve. Recently, I've heard this comedian saying how Donald Trump does it. He just tells you all it is, and it was such a funny piece. He said, Donald Trump comes out and say, "I'm a racist." And if you come at him, it's like, "You're a racist." Yeah, that's what I just said.
Yeah.
If you've done something, okay, use it against me. I told you that I did it. I love the position. I love the honesty. So many business owners trying to hide it, trying not to talk about it. I just love the transparency. I want to ask you about recognition of your people and your culture. So I see that you recognize a lot your salespeople. How do you recognize crew leaders, laborers? What do you do for other parts of the business as far as recognition and culture goes? Because there's a big controversy goes in the industry where we have crews hating on sales guys hating on managers, what's not owners. There's groups within an industry who don't have enough respect for each other. And I see it a lot from laborers to salespeople and salespeople to business owners. Those three big groups usually pretty negative about each other. And I feel like the best way to fix it is within our organizations. What do you do at yours?
Yeah. So one of the things I actually spoke at your last event was recognition. So while we create a lot of recognition for project managers and leaders and all these kind of things, I think if I were to give everyone some advice out there, most companies, and then I'll move to the other people, most companies only recognize top performers, right? And it's always just numbers based and it's top performers, right? But what if you were to coach your leaders that in every opportunity that they spend time with their people, that they search for 3 or 4 recognition points? And recognition points could be on how they handled the conversation with the homeowner, how they handled the phone call, how they handled something that they fed back to you that they taught you, you taught them at some point. Looking for recognition moments all the time, because the expression goes, if you think you're right, you're right. If you think you're wrong, but either way, you're right. If you think you suck, you suck. And if your boss keeps telling you you suck, you think you suck, right? But what if boss started treating you like a winner? Could you potentially start thinking that you're a winner? And could you potentially start obliging to that recognition, those recognition moments? See, the problem is we only start recognizing peak performance and top performance, and we don't realize that we have to graduate people to that. And to get there, they still need feedback and they still need recognition. So recognition moments can come in a lot of different shapes, sizes, and forms. It could be driving with them and how they handle a conversation with a spouse. It could be something personal. It could be anything. Man, I love the way that, in the conversation with your wife, when she'd asked you something, you had told her how much you loved her and you cared for her, and whatever it is, right? You could come up with, it's so easy to come up with recognition moments, right? So I think that's the first thing that companies need to start realizing, is because in sales, it's the 80-20 rule, right? Right? So 20% of the guys are doing 80% of the business. And same thing, who are we recognizing? The 20%. What would happen? Could we tip the scales and start getting in a 60-40? Could we, these kind of things. And then the other thing I'd actually shared in that was a lot of your A and B players that are performing really well get left alone. And because they get left alone, they should be standalone, not left alone. And when you leave them alone, their habits, their disciplines, and everything slide backwards, and they become, your A players become B players, your B players become C players. So the lack of recognition, the standalone versus left alone, all these little things over time, eventually you're wondering why you aren't doing as well as you used to. And this comes back to this recognition. It's a small thing, looking for these opportunities all the time. In our office, we have a meeting every single Friday looking for recognition moments every single week for all the employees in the office. And we also run a voting system for Employee of the Month within the office. So we do that kind of stuff. And then we've always had a culture of looking after, we don't really run awards or anything for our crews, but you'll see on our feed with our leaders and our people, we're always taking them food. We're always taking them refreshments. We're always looking after them. Those guys are out there in the heat. And I think one of the other ways to truly recognize your crews is to pay them right all the time. Right? Crews know. We have crews that are working with us that have been working with us almost since we started because they know we'll keep them busy all year and they never have to worry about their money. We're never going to try and squeeze them. We're not going to try and short pay them. We're not looking to do that, right? We're not figuring out how to pay people less. As a matter of fact, I want to pay you more, right? So we actually have a lot of really loyal crews that they're not employees. They're independent contractors, subcontractors, and we look after them.
Vandalism. Do you see it in Dallas? Have you ever dealt with in your company? Have you ever caught anyone doing it? I know it's a pretty big deal in the industry. Desperate salespeople trying to make a damage. Do you see it's happening in your markets?
Oh, vandalism on roofs?
On the roofs by contractors, by sales reps.
I don't hear and see of it much anymore, and maybe because we're bigger and maybe it hasn't got to me. It gets to some other levels and people handle it for me. So, but I really don't hear of much of that anymore. I know it's happening in the industry, but once again, man, just like I was talking earlier, I think I may have gone on a tangent on the Google reviews. Where I told my team, I said, look, 99% of the time when we actually backtrack a Google review and we look at all the communication and we look at everything, there was breakdown on our part. We could have
negative review.
Yeah, we could have prevented it, right? A negative review. And for that reason, if a negative review comes up and your name's attached to it, it's not going to be a good conversation. Just know that. I don't care how you justify it. I don't care how well you think you did everything. It is not going to be a good conversation.
So you're telling me the customer's always right?
They're not always right, but there's something we could have done to prevent it from getting that far along the process. In most cases, there is still a breakdown. Even if the customer's absolutely wrong, there's still a breakdown in the way that we handled it, meaning you didn't bring it to someone's attention, you didn't get your leader involved, you sent off a response to the customer that pissed them off even more. There's breakdown. Do you see what I'm getting at? And I sort of feel like that most of this stuff comes from the leadership. And when you go work somewhere, it's like, I'm telling you now, if I find out that anyone has done that, I don't care who you are, how great you are, you're instantly terminated. I think my people feel and know that doing that kind of stuff is just not okay.
What about other behavior? Like, what if you find out that your guys are stealing competitors' yard signs?
Great point. So there was a post last night, actually, on Level the Playing Field.
Okay.
A guy down in Granbury actually posted, one of my guys had come from Florida and he had some of the boards, so he used a Florida board, which he shouldn't have. So there was a lot of back and forth on that too. So
your guy took someone else's yard sign?
We'll get there. So my guy put a sign in the yard. So part of the post was why they're using a Florida licensed board. Well, my guy was doing stuff in Florida. He got some boards with him. He put it in the yard. Shouldn't have. We'll get them switched out. That was part of the post. Number two, look, I wasn't there. You weren't there. However, I think when a hailstorm hits in Texas or Florida or wherever, you got a lot of guys hitting the streets. It can be stressful. There's a lot of people with past and existing customers that new guys are knocking on their doors. And, there's a lot of moving parts. But a guy did post something in Level the Playing Field last night stating that one of my guys stole his customer and stole his board. I was on the plane, actually, when this all happened, and my signal wasn't working. We were flying through a storm. I was actually stressed about it, truthfully. And a couple of other roofing company owners had actually sent me private messages saying, hey, you may want to take a look at this. And as a matter of fact, Steve Soleil actually went on there and said, hey, I know these guys. That's not how they run their business. So that was pretty awesome. We landed up calling the customer. We landed up talking to the salesperson. And we actually landed up calling the guy that made the post. After we spoke with him, he actually removed the post. I actually haven't spoken to my guys since they've spoken to him, but I know that he went in and removed the post. I know that we have a full inspection folder on it. We have all the pictures. Our sales professional met the homeowner, met the homeowner's wife, gave us a full story of the conversation. So there's no ways that our guy went there and illegally took the board and replaced it, which is really what the original complaint
accusation
was. Correct. If I were to say something that our guy, without being there, and maybe there's other variables I don't know yet, but if I were to say that there's one thing that our guy did wrong in that situation is even if a homeowner says, yes, please place your board, don't go steal the guy's, don't go take the guy's board. Like, you can give it to the homeowner and ask the homeowner to hold it, but to actually take the board is not acceptable.
Respect the sign.
Yeah. There's no need for us to be tacky. But once again, it's not a perfect world. And in some ways, there's always going to be a guy out there that does something silly, right? But here's what we do. Just like you see sometimes guys go and they bash a roofer online and all the consumers jump in on it. And it's like you're hurting our industry. You're making it worse. I'll tell everyone out there, you got a problem with something that one of my guys did? Call me.
Love it.
I'll handle it. Because it's going to happen to you. So how would you like it when one of your people do something wrong that 500 people go bash you on social media? Like, come on, it's not a perfect world. But once again, if it's real and we can work through it and we can fix it, we fix it. Because people are going to do stupid things. I don't care who you are. Don't tell me that you run a squeaky clean, perfect operation and no one ever does anything wrong. We're mature, grown adults. When we have there's an expression that says, life is filled with many situations. They become problems depending on how you handle them.
True.
We will all be faced with many situations. Call me. We'll talk it out. We'll figure it out. If my guy did something wrong and it was bad enough, I'll terminate him. If he did something wrong and it was okay, we'll have a serious chat with him, never to let it happen again. Depending on what the situation is. But I'm gonna handle it. I'm not gonna ignore it. Like we're too big and we have too much responsibility to just ignore stuff and or to handle it in an immature fashion, right? So maybe my message to all the guys out there is like, it's the pot calling the kettle black. Like,
great approach.
Come on. Talk it out. Figure it out. I had a couple of years ago, I actually had an installer jump online. It's like, screw Linear Roofing. They haven't paid me. But earlier I told you we always pay our people.
Of course.
And we always do. There was a different breakdown in that process, right? And I was in Houston. I called him up and I said, hey, what do mature adults do? They talk. They figure it out. And we fix it. Do we really need to go online and bash each other and expose things to the entire world? And in most cases, who looks bad? We both do. And everyone else gets their popcorn and they enjoy it. They love it. Mm-hmm. This is why controversial movies make so much money.
Of course.
That's why they try and make movies as bloody and as controversial as possible, because the more controversial it is, the more people watch it, right? And people are running to social media and just posting it out there. There's many ways to deal with these things. Social media is not the answer.
Let me ask you this. There's another big problem in the industry, and a lot of guys don't have cool with it. stealing. I don't want to say stealing, but going after the names. So when for example, I have a company right now in Florida. So there's a Trust Roofing in, I believe, Tampa, and there's a Trust Roofing in Miami. And actually, this Trust Roofing was first, and they called them up. They stole their reviews, they stole their pictures, they stole their name, and they create great confusion for the customers. So the Trust Roofing, actually, the original one, called them very polite, very nice, never did social or anything, and they said, listen guys, you're doing it, like we have our pictures with our Trust Roofing on your website, what is going on? And they wouldn't take it down. And now, like, these nice guys are hurting because it's their reputation, and that company is completely douchebags. Like, how do you answer to that when someone trying to copy you, your brand name, your, like, that's a theft in my book. And do you also advise to be nice about that, or be a little bit more on the firm side?
Yeah. So listen, there's always going to come a time and place where you're going to have to sink your teeth in, depending on what the infringement is.
Sure.
Right. Not sure that online's really the place. However, we did at one point. We had someone leave us. They opened up a company. They didn't use our name, but they used a bunch of pictures that were all our roofs. Right. And now they're claiming that they've been in business forever and that they've done all these roofs. And, and as an independent contractor, that's interesting because they did do those roofs and they are an independent contractor. So they did do the work in some ways. Right. Mm-hmm. But they did it under and this is where contracts and paperwork are important based on, what is considered, an infringement of rights and or ownership of property, when someone leaves and the lead's in the system, whose lead is it? These kind of things. These are all important when it comes to using the right attorneys to draft your paperwork, not to screw people over, but to protect the business, right? Because you don't want to be doing this business and then all of a sudden you've got all these things happening and you can't maintain the business, right? So we'd sent them some notices and they obliged and they pulled them down. But if it comes down to it, here's what I have learned, and I can go over to customers. We had a customer at one point where they told us 18 months later that there was a leak on the floor. And it buckled their flooring. And, we looked into it. We went out and did a water test and all the rest of it. And I said, you know what, guys, just replace the floors. Just get it done. Our guy comes back to us, says it was like $26,000, whatever it is. Let's do the right thing. Let's get it done. Customer says, no, you have to use my floor guy. My floor guy wants $65,000.
Wow.
So this is where we, and
enough is enough.
Yeah, this was my first lesson in business. I sunk my teeth in. Attorneys told me you'll win this all day long. 2.5 years later, the whole thing ended up costing me $127,000.
Wow.
You got to pick and choose your battles. I know this.
How did they win that one?
When the guy first went out, he sealed the top of a window. And then it became, there was no ways for me to retract what was done and make it perfect to the way it was before we put the sealant on the window. Mm-hmm. And the law had stated that I had to prove that it wasn't, and being that happened, dynamics had changed and I couldn't, is what it really, really came down to. But I think what it really, really came down to is we were in mediation and guy goes from our room to their room and back and forth and back and forth. And then eventually we'll end up in the same room. And my attorney looked at me and says, you need to pay. And I looked at him and I said, when did you join their team? I fired him after that. It's like, at that point it comes down to know this. I think when it comes to most things in law, it's actually not about who's right or wrong. It's about who's willing to spend more money. because it's the person that's willing to commit more dollars long term. Because if that went to court, probably would have been another $200,000 to go to trial and blah, 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 blah. And it's like at some point here, what are we doing? You know,
Is
and
it even worth it?
and yeah, that's the deal, right? So, and same thing when it comes to some of these conflicts. If everyone can just figure out how to figure it out on their own and work together and
But
find a
it's
medium ground.
It's very hard. Like I have a contractor right now in the Midwest, and someone wanted to sue him, and he decided to change name, and he had the same name for like 8 years, and they were coming after him, and he's like, do I fight it for 200, 300K, or do I just rename my company? And it sucks because someone have to be a bigger man, but it's those are hard. Like those are truly hard. And I see the guys are being so frustrated. Like you build a brand, you build a name, and then someone takes that name, and now it's a Google reviews, it's online reputation, and now you're getting calls like, hey, are you associated with them? And it's tough choice to rebrand you or fight them.
Life is not fair.
True.
Right? It's not. When we came out there in the hospital and we popped out, there was not a sign that says life is fair. Okay? As a matter of fact, there should be a sign there saying life's not fair. Sometimes you're just going to get screwed. It just is what it is. I hate to say it. I'll give you a quick example. This is a sky dweller. I had a stainless Blueface sky dweller.
Okay.
I flew to California recently.
I'm not a watch guy. Tell me about Skyfall. Like, is it famous watch?
It's actually one of the most complicated movement Rolexes. It's got 16 different movements. It's actually one of the most complicated Rolex pieces, even though it's not one of the most utmost expensive pieces.
Sure.
You know, a stainless Blueface is, I think, like 20 grand, 18 grand from the store. But the minute you walk out the store, it goes up in value.
Really?
The minute you walk out, right?
Wow. So it's an investment.
Yeah, it can be, yes, depending on how the market's doing. But certain sports models always go up, right? This was like 40, and it went up to like 75.
So you're a big Rolex guy? Like, what's your favorite brand and watches?
Rolex. Rolex and Patek Philippe.
Okay.
But those are, I only buy the ones that go up. So if you think about it, I buy it, I wear it, I enjoy it, it's fun, looks cool, and at some point, if I want to get rid of it, I get rid of it and I make money.
Wow.
And in most cases, I'll probably make more money than that money sitting in the bank account.
Is it true that they sold out? Like, you can't even get a watch? Like, I think I watched Kevin O'Leary recently saying that he wanted to buy a watch and there's like big line or delay or...
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, the average person that wants to go get that just walks into a Rolex store and puts their name on a list to get a Sky Dweller Blueface right now, you probably wait 4 years.
4 years.
Yes.
Interesting.
And,
okay,
you may actually never see one.
Okay.
Because what they want you to do is buy a ton of stuff. You got to earn your rankings.
Wow.
And once you become someone that's bought a lot of stuff from them, just like Ferrari. You can't buy a LaFerrari. You had to have bought 40 cars and be integrated into their system to get that car. And that car is like a, $1.7 million car, and today it's worth $4.5 million. Right? You just can't get one unless you've spent enough time and you're integrated into their culture and you go to all their events and you go to the racing events and you bought a ton of cars. You're not going to get one.
What's the story now? Like, I got it.
So I fly to California for an appointment. I go into this hotel. I go to dinner. I'm in a rush. The safe's not working. I travel with a little watch case. I had two watches with me. I decided to wear one to dinner. My stainless one I decided to leave behind. The safe's not working. I'm in a rush. I stick the watch under a cushion. Go to dinner. Wake up next day. I'm actually feeling bad. So I'm like, it was actually a dental appointment. And I'm starting to cough all the rest of it. I'm like, I can't go in there. They're going to like chase me out. So I'm like, screw it. I'm just going to go back home. So I check out. Change my flight. On my way to the airport. As I'm driving to the airport in the Uber, I realized I forgot my watch under the cushion. Call the hotel up. Hey, you guys got my watch. We'll send someone. They go up there. They retrieve the watch. They confirm they retrieved the watch. They put the watch in the safe. This is the Mayborn Hotel in Beverly Hills. You're spending $2,200 a night.
Wow.
Stay in this hotel. You could spend $1,400 depending on what room or whatever it is, right? And they're like, don't worry, Mr. Linington. It's in the safe. It's fun. I said, I'll be back in a couple of weeks. It took me another extra 2 weeks. I went back. That was November 28th. I went back early January, right?
This year.
Yes. This is one of those top hotels. Like this hotel actually has condos on the top. And like, what's that African-American lady on TV that has the talk show? Oprah. She had an apartment there. Okay. This is it's $20 million for an apartment there. This is Justin Bieber lives there. As a matter of fact, last time I was there, I saw Justin sitting in the coffee shop having coffee and whatever it is, right? Great place. So when they say to you, Mr. Linington, your watch is in the safe.
You believe it's in the safe?
Yeah, it's in the safe. So anyway, I get back there. They say, welcome, Mr. Linington. I said, hey, can you get all the security manager? My watch is in the safe. They're like, yeah, generally takes 10 to 15 minutes. Would you like us to bring it to the room? I said, yeah. They bring it to the room. I'm in there. I grab it, looks right, put it down, sign for it. I've been flying and everything. I got to do some stuff, and then I got to get out to my appointment. And I'm like, a couple of minutes later, I'm like, I better eat first, so let me leave. And I'm like, I'm going to wear it. I grab it. I put it on my arm. It's much bigger. And I'm like, what's the deal? And I'm like, maybe they messed with it or whatever. So I'm like, well, let me adjust the time. Now, on this watch, you have to twist the bezel to adjust the time, right? It changes the setting on the watch. That's the hour, that's the minute, that's the date, right? It doesn't turn. Like, wait a minute, this thing's fake. It's a fake Rolex. I go downstairs, I'm like, guys, you just brought me my watch, it's fake. Anyway.
And how are you going to prove it?
Well, long story short, they said it's an insurance claim. I dealt with an insurance company called Zurich. I got the letter this morning. We apologize, but we do not feel we're responsible for your watch. Done.
Wow. So
life's unfair.
No one's going to investigate in the hotel who could do it? Because there's so many people touched it. Must have cameras.
So they have a camera on the safe full time.
Okay.
That films the safe. But they're saying because so much time went by, the video footage is moved on.
Wow.
And they're like, you're out of luck.
Should have come back sooner.
Listen, my bad for leaving it there, but life sucks.
Wow.
So now I'm in a position where I got to decide what to do. Do I want to pursue this, or do I want to let it go? When it was bought used as a gift to me by my ex-business partner for $28,000.
So it's a gift.
So what do I do?
Sentimental value. So what do you think you're going to do?
I don't know.
Haven't decided yet? What is it about watches and cars? You recently bought a very expensive car. How much was that car? 2, 3 million, whatever?
4 million.
4 million? What is it for you? Why watches? Why cars? Is it motivation for others? Lead by example, see what I have and that you can get there? Is it a personal choice? What is it? Yeah. Does it drive you, or you do it to help drive others?
So I have some people that believe that within our organization that believe that it motivates others, and that's okay because maybe it does, and people aspire to want to get those things. I actually don't live by that belief. I do it for me.
Okay.
It's all for me. When I was a kid, my first sports car was my true sport supercar. First one was a Lamborghini Hurricane.
That was in the LA days?
Towards the end.
Okay.
I was doing both.
Sure.
And when I was a kid, I used to sit around and doodle. I used to draw a car that looks like the Hurricane as a kid. I wish I had some of that stuff to show. And it was mainly the front end, that shop front end.
Sure.
I used to draw it, right? So I used to play with those cards. There's this game in South Africa where you trade cards and it shows the horsepower of the car. And that's where I learned Mustangs and all those kind of things because it was on those cards. But I'd never seen those cars in real life, right? So I've just always had this natural fixation or whatever it is to just, I love cars. But I've done enough in the car world and bought enough cars to build my relationships to the point that now I can get desirable cars. And if you think about it this way, if you have the means and you can actually buy this car that's highly desirable, drive it for a while, experience it, sell it, and make money.
It's investment.
Correct. There's people out there that will debate that watches are not an investment, cars are not an investment, but I'm not really buying it to make money. I just buy it because I know I can enjoy it and not lose money. So the amount that I make doesn't really matter. Even if I go even on it, I'm okay with it.
I mean, in the car, having a car and being even with it's actually great because cars depreciate.
No doubt. Right?
Most of them.
I can say this. I am using the current car to build my social media. I put my Instagram name on the side, just a little thing on the side, and I go to the car shows. And after every single car show, I've built up more followers. And some people say, "Why are you building your following?" I'm like, I don't know. I think it's the way of the future, and
It's
I think
a new currency.
I think there's some value there. And
Is that why you do podcasts too? That's to spread awareness about your personal brand?
No.
Why do you do podcasts?
Because people ask me. But I'll tell you this, and I had this chat with Ryan Stuman recently at lunch. I went to lunch with him recently, and I said to him, hey, there's a couple of people's podcasts that I'd like to get on. I'd like to start going on podcasts where there's value on both sides. I've actually, in the last year, turned down a lot of podcasts. And the reason being is because I felt the reason I was invited to the podcast was only to add value to the person hosting the podcast. And that's not the right reason for me to go on a podcast, right? So I'm not on this mission to get my message out there. However, I do believe under the right circumstances, I can add value, right? So I've actually, at a point, became selective and started saying, I'm not going to go on a lot of podcasts. And I think that's probably also relative to what's happening in my life, right? If I feel like my thinking has changed a little bit and my message is improving or changing and I've evolved a little bit and I have a different message to add, then I'll go on a podcast because it's something fresh. It's not, because you could go on
countless.
There's so many podcasts out there, and you're diluting your message.
I agree.
It's the same stuff. So it's like
less is more.
And if I'm not adding value anymore, then why am I doing it? Because, anyway. So I got different thinking on that.
Favorite car now you don't have yet? You got Bugatti. Do you still have a dream car? Because we grow as our dreams grow. So you as a kid, you like Ferraris, you like sports car. Now you have ultimate sport car. What's there to like?
Yeah.
What's there else?
Yeah, I'm sure life is just levels, right? Does it become a jet next? Does it, what's the real deal? There's actually a jet coming out in hopefully 2025 called the Honda Jet 2600.
I was gonna say Honda Jet. I've seen it. Pretty sweet.
Well, that's a small
57 million, I think, is the price tag.
No. This is a more of a. I don't want to say it's an entry level jet. It's going to be like 10 to 12 million.
Maybe.
But it's going to be the first. What do they call it? Transatlantic.
Smaller one. Yeah,
jet
I've seen
that can fly anywhere in the U.S. nonstop.
Nice.
And I think it can get over the pond, but the point is, it's lighter on fuel, better technology, higher cabin pressure, less fatigue for travel. It's got all these cool things, right? So for me, it's also about setting goals, because some people say, well, when's it enough money? Well, it's not about the money. You've got it wrong. It's still about the money for you. It's not about the money for me anymore. It's not what gets me up every day, right? So, have you ever heard the expression that says your attitude almost always determines your altitude in life?
Yes.
Right? Do you agree?
Yes.
Okay. I don't.
Why?
So what if I have a great attitude, but I'm lazy?
I see your point.
Right? But what if I'm a hard worker and I have a great attitude? Well, attitude's the difference maker. Do you see what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
So let me relate that to money. If you're a good husband, a hard worker, you're putting in good time, you're good to your family, you're a good human being, good to people at work, and you add money, money's the difference maker between a good life and a great life because you create more experiences without the stress of worrying about it.
Like Dave Ramsey said, it makes you more of who you are.
Yes. Good and bad.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So money can be the difference maker, I think, when I think about money, right? And then there's the other thought on it is that if you work a certain amount of time and you put in X amount of effort and a certain amount of money hits the bank account, it's how we take score. Meaning you make a mental note in your head, is this worth it? Is the juice worth the squeeze, right? But it's not about the money because when I get hyper-focused on the money, you start making bad decisions. It's like my expression that says trying to control results instead of influencing thinking. Most business owners out there are waking up every day, and what's the first things they look at? The numbers, the production, the this, the that, the that. And then they call everyone and their day gets managed by the numbers. What I want to do is connect with people and spend time with people so I can influence their thinking. And if I can change the way that someone thinks, I can change the actions. Most people are trying to change the actions. Make sense?
Yes.
So coming back to the car, I'm going to get the next car. I already have an allocation. I'm flying to Sweden in May to spec it out.
What is it?
It's called the Koenigsegg Jesko.
Okay.
It's just a beautiful car.
Okay. We'll check it out.
Yeah.
What motivates you?
I love to win. Small wins, big wins, positive direction, traction. So in that comes expression on people's faces. When that guy that was making 30 grand a year got a 30 grand check in like 1 week's payday. And we put that on social media. Some people say it's controversial. You shouldn't be putting that out there. But we do. And it's part of that recognition piece because we want people to, we want to reinforce behaviors, right? If someone at home is pissy about how much money someone else is making, then you make some changes in your life. I'm not going to tiptoe around your feelings because I've got someone that I've been able to take that was struggling in their life and lift them up. And it's not about the money. It's about the win. The money just adds value to the level of success within that moment to show that they did a really good job. Because if I wrote an article saying I want to lift this guy up and I explain all this stuff and I don't put a check with him holding it, how many people are going to read it? But the minute I put that picture up there with that dollar amount, everyone goes, wow. And then the haters do what? They get all pissy.
Of course.
Can't believe you put that on social media. It's like, come on now, man. If you're unhappy with your life, change it.
What wouldn't you put on the social media? What not to post in your book?
There was probably a time where I'd say there's a lot of stuff that I was actually uncomfortable. I was uncomfortable posting my car on social media. I felt like people would think that I'm making too much money or, you know, these kind of things, right? There was a time where there's been many times where me and my wife have been on vacation and she wants to post stuff. And I'm like, hey, babe, don't post that, right? And, but, you know, I think I'm at a point now where social media has evolved to the fact that people are actually okay seeing other people's wins in life, because that really is a story of life and what's happening in people's worlds. I don't do it to boast. It's never had anything to do with that. But it is my life and it's what I'm leading and it's how I'm living and it's what's happening. So why should I continually pick and choose what I put on there? I think I don't. I think I said it earlier. I think negative things like an altercation with me and a roofer. And I think there's a difference between depending on where we're at in social media, right? If it's my personal, then I want to keep that positive, right? If it's a business and I'm creating debates and these kind of things, that's different, right? Because that's the business platform that I'm working on. That's the thing that I'm doing. But I think for me to go bash people and put my personal, this is a big thing for me. I see people getting into arguments, breaking up, having divorces, and they jump online and they go like bash each other. It's your personal business. Keep it offline. But, once again,
positive.
Yeah, that's debatable too, right? Because then you're saying, okay, well, you post your car because that's how you really live, but I'm posting what's really happening in my life, right? So it's So I think really what's good and what's bad is personal preference.
The best ways to find jobs, best marketing.
What do you mean?
In business, like in the roofing business, what's the best way to find jobs? I know you guys do a lot of door knocking. Is that your number one lead gen?
It is. Yeah.
Anything else you see will take over? What if tomorrow they say you cannot door knock anymore, just like we did during the COVID and restrictions and stuff like that? What would you do?
Yeah. So it's a great point. Listen, we have built our business on door knocking, and I see the benefit for adding the digital and the online. I believe in it. And we're working in the background on some of that stuff. So I see the value in it. I just feel like through COVID and everything, everyone became an online marketing guru. And you go to these events and all these people, and a lot of these guys are actually subbing this out to people in other countries. And a lot of people are promising a lot of what people aren't getting. There's just so much of this out there.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And people have been sucked into giving away their money,
Especially monthly, like 5K a month, 10K a month.
Well, this is the thing. It's become sort of like the fashion, right? People are just not even ashamed to say, yeah, that'll be 10 grand a month. And they ain't even really doing shit for you.
Exactly.
They're doing some basic stuff. So if I was sending a message to all the guys out there, like I had a guy reach out to me on my way. Yeah, he's like, hey, I see you have a great profile on Instagram and all the rest of it, blah, 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 blah. We take guys like you and turn them into celebrities online and blah, 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 blah. And, would you? I said, look, I don't have much time to go back and forth with you. If you have something you want to send me, send it, and I'll look at it. He sends me this proposal, and then he's telling me how they work with all these celebrities, and he has all the people that they've created and all the rest of it. I said to him, hey, can you send me the links to all the celebrities that you work with? None of them are celebrities. It's all bullshit. It's just like hiring, right? I guess what I'm saying is I believe in the marketing. I think it's important. But I think roofing company owners need to be very cautious about who they're using before they hand their money over. And they need to do their homework, just like guys need to do when they hire salespeople, right? If you're not calling 3 references, what are you doing?
Exactly.
Why aren't you calling references?
They're not doing it.
They're not. I'm telling you now. They get a guy come in the office. They're like, oh, I do this, this.
Here.
They hire them.
Take my car, take my money.
And then next thing you know, 8 months later, they have a lawsuit on their hands from this guy because he had a lawsuit from the previous guy too. Because you didn't even call references. You put everyone at risk because you were sloppy. Well, same thing in the marketing. Don't be sloppy. You're going to hand them good, hard-earned money. That's really actually coming from your people working hard. Like,
Exactly.
do your homework.
Love it. What content do you consume? Who do you watch? Who do you like? Are you Netflix a lot? Are you, what podcast do you listen to?
Myself and my wife will, pick up a Netflix series here and there. I don't really watch much TV, but I do enjoy a good movie or a good show. I do.
What about books? You read a lot?
I go through phases of reading. I've read a lot. I use a lot of references when I speak to books that I've read. Earlier we spoke about the podcasts and the diluting. 48 Laws of Power is a controversial book. There's a lot of good in there, but there's also a lot of shady stuff. But one of the laws in there is create value through scarcity. I believe that a lot of leaders become too diluted and too common because and I spoke about this, they're hanging out with their people in the bars all the time. They're always together. They've become diluted. They don't carry any value when they're with their people anymore because they're not using every opportunity to, redirect, coach, mentor, find recognition moments, these kind of things. It's always casual. It's always drinking. It's always, you're my bro, you're my guy. And then they wonder why they can't build a team, right? I do like Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, really good book. Blink by Malcolm Gladwell was a really good book. If there's a real simple leadership book out there for business owners on 13 fatal errors that managers make, and looking at what are those areas. First one is taking personal accountability. Another one is trying to control results instead of influencing thinking. Condoning incompetence. What are the pitfalls of condoning incompetence on a team, and what are the long-term ramifications to that? These are all the simple things and mistakes that most managers make when managing a team. So that's a great read. Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek.
I love that.
Is another great book. I could probably go on. There's a ton of books out there.
Sounds like you're definitely reading a lot on leadership, which is not surprising. I have last set of questions, and they're all personal, maybe a little controversial, but I want to know. Relationship with alcohol.
Yeah.
How much you drink? How often? Do you drink it all?
Yeah, I do. Probably once a week.
Once a week?
Yeah.
Was the occasion just restaurants, you guys, your...
It could be either one. Yeah. And when I say a drink, it may just be myself and my wife that'll go to a restaurant on a Saturday, and I'll have 2 glasses of wine, or, when I go out with our people, I'll have a couple of drinks, but I'm never going to get too loose because I'm always paying attention to what's happening and what's going on. But I do want to connect with them, and so yeah, I've just always been a firm believer of everything in moderation. So,
industry have pretty big problem with alcohol, drugs. Just last week, business owner messaged me, one of the top producers in his company. He has to check him in a rehab. What do you do with it in your company? Do you see the problem with your sales reps? Maybe people start making money and they start partying a little bit too much. You control it. How do you? If you notice something like that, what do you do? Do you have any protocol for that?
Yeah, I don't really have a protocol besides, in my office, I actually have a sofa and a table like this and 2 chairs and a desk. And I tell people that I spend a lot of my time coaching people personally. A lot of my people know when there are certain concerns. My leaders will tell them to come sit with me. And I come and sit with them because I come from a family with some of these issues and drug abuse and these kind of things. I've intimate relationships with these problems. So I've worked through them for many, many years. I really just get them to come sit with me. And even all my leaders know, if you've got any issues, whether it's finances, whether it's alcohol, whether it's marriage, whether it's whatever, you're buying your first house, whatever. Remember, I'm a huge believer in helping coach your people through their personal lives. So they know. I've got a lot of my leaders. I've coached them through their first home purchase. I've coached them in investments. I've coached them in, and if there's certain areas that I can't speak into, then I'll refer them to professionals that I use. Because I want them to look after their money. I want their money to grow. I don't want them to spend I don't have that old school mentality that a lot of the guys do that hey, they need to spend all their money so they can get back to work. That kind of stuff. No, I want them depressurized, right? I want their money to work for them. I want them to grow. I want them to do better in life. So my people know if they need any kind of coaching in life or whatever it is, come sit with me. Not saying I got all the answers, but I've been through a ton of shit in my life. And a lot of experiences. And I say to a lot of people, I'm not smarter than you. I don't know more than you. I've just been here longer than you, which means I've had more experiences. And I pull from those experiences, not necessarily always literature or books.
How long does your sales guys on average stay within company? What's your I guess, cycle? Is it 1, 2 years? Is it 5 years? Some companies I know in the industry, it's revolving door. Like every year they start over. Like what's your, like people leaving, people coming back?
Yeah. So, one of the things when we did join private equity that was actually studied for us was retention. And the results came back favorable based on industry averages, right? We keep people longer than most. However, and maybe this is bad, we've only been in business 8 years, so I don't have too much data to pull from, right? Like it's not like I've been in business 15, 20 years where I could say, hey, I got guys with me. I do have guys with me that have been with me 8 years, and I have guys at 7 years and 6 years. However, I can tell you that through growth, you're going to have to improve your onboarding process to minimize, because we did go through a phase where we lost a lot more people faster, and we looked inwards and we said, okay, as you get bigger and your leaders get busier, they're spending less time with the new recruits. So what can you start? Because they say that the true success of a guy long-term was how much time he spends with the leader in the first 30 days. If you can get your new recruits to spend most of their time with their leader in their first 30 days, not the leader's assistant, not the leader's top guy, because that's
actual leader.
The actual leader, right? That their success rate goes up by like 67%, or I forget the stat, right? So it's just critical. And as a matter of fact, that comes from a book called Situational Leadership. No, not Situational Leadership. Multi-unit leadership. I forget the author, but it's about a guy who becomes a leader in a bunch of restaurants. And they talk about managing multiple units and the success of the people within the organization. And one of the chapters talks about the allocation of time to the people that you bring on by the leader and their long-term success rate. So I think people really need to start saying, okay, as we grow, if you really want to keep your people longer and it's getting diluted. So what we did was, and I'll tell you, we implemented a 30-day onboarding program, right? Where we'll do a boot camp, we'll bring in 30 people, and they got to go through a 30-day process. Each day is structured. Maybe you'll learn certain things in class, you'll hit the field in the afternoon, you go practice those things. You come back, you share success stories in the morning, you learn some things, you get out in the field, and so you keep repeating this process, right? And then once you're done with the trainers that are training the class, we release you to your leader that you're going to be with, and then that leader actually has to fill out a form every day on the things that they did with that person in that back 2 weeks, right? So we're doing everything we can to improve the onboarding process, to improve the success rate for people to stay longer. And in most cases, why do people stay longer? They're doing well.
Well,
they enjoy the environments.
They also believe in the growth. Like a lot of people leave because they hit the ceiling. There's no potential. So
upward mobility.
People will stay for way longer if they have opportunity. I mean, you stay at LA and all the way to the top, but how many years it took you? But you believed in yourself. You believed that you're going to get to the top.
One of our core values is long-term perspective.
Love it.
I'm just a firm believer that nothing good comes from anything unless you stay the course. You have to stay the course. You're never going to grow in anything unless you stay the course. Now, that's not a hard and fast rule. But if you can stay the course on things, in most cases, starting a business, working somewhere, whatever it is, if you're working hard and you stay the course, you have to grow.
Got it.
And
agreed.
And if you started with a company that, when you interviewed and you didn't ask them about growth and you also didn't look at their previous growth. Now, obviously, there's some exceptions to the rule with newer companies because there's no data yet.
Of course.
But if you're going to go join an existing company and you're not looking at past growth data, because how does that expression go? Past behaviors are a great predictor of future behaviors.
Mm-hmm. Agree?
Yeah.
Circling back to Patrick Bet-David.
Yes.
You tried to recruit him, he said? Or how was it? I think he mentioned in our interview that you were trying to recruit him, or what was your interaction? What's your side of the story? He remembers you really well.
I honestly don't ever remember trying to recruit him.
Okay.
Are you sure it wasn't someone else?
No, it was him. He said at LA Fitness because he was at LA Fitness.
Yeah, but it may not have been me personally.
Well, he said he remembers Kirt Linington, and I'm pretty sure he said you tried to recruit him. That's how he remembers it.
I don't remember that.
What do you remember?
I don't remember any interaction with him.
Really?
Yeah.
How do
I
you
just
know him?
follow him because I think he's awesome.
I see.
Yeah.
He said he knows you from LA days.
Well, I want to get on his podcast, so
I'll see if I can connect you
hey,
guys.
maybe he can refresh my memory.
Sure.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I think he's a brilliant man.
He is.
Yeah.
What you don't like in the roofing industry now? What trends? What's bad things or bad trends, or where we all headed? What needs to change? The change you want to see in the industry on any level, insurance, manufacturing, supplies. Like what's hard?
I mean, there's so many.
Like what's the bigger one that's happening like right now? Price increases. What bothers you? What do you don't like?
There's so many, right? Like, and it's interesting on what you want to comment on when it comes to some of this stuff because.
Well, you want to comment on something that you can change or you can make impact on. What can we change?
I think roofers working with insurance carriers, roofers working with each other, bashing each other, all this kind of stuff that keeps happening out there. I mean, that stuff's just so immature. Suppliers is an interesting one because everyone's on a special deal and it's secretive and it's separate and it's, maybe such is business and
it's interesting that even bigger players like yourself have hard time getting materials. And I don't know your situation, but I see a lot of very big accounts. They cannot buy direct or they have to almost beg for materials these days. I have very big accounts who tell me they're switching brands because brands cannot produce products, even for biggest players. It's a lot of interesting supply and demand issues in the last few years.
Some of that stuff's politics, some of that stuff's relationships, and some of it's real. Some of it is truly there isn't enough. But I feel like if the relationship is great enough, they are still producing stock, which means someone else got that stock. Someone got it.
I see.
So where's the relationship? I don't know.
Do you have problems with the supply?
No.
So you get shingles?
We get them. And through COVID, we got them.
So you don't have to switch brands? No shortages for linear roofing?
We recently switched brands.
You did?
We did.
Okay, we're going to find out. What's your take on public adjusters? Do we need them? When do we need them? How much of the public adjusters we need? Because I talked to a lot of public adjusters, and some of them say that a roofer need public adjuster on every single claim. Is it true or false statement? Do we need public adjusters on every claim?
I don't think so at all. I don't think you need public adjusters on all claims. And once again, this is very controversial depending on which market you're in.
Sure.
Because once you start moving to Florida, there are a lot of organizations that push everything to attorneys, simply because carriers may or may not be doing the right thing. I don't know. But I think I'll come back to the same thing. I run a play, they run a play, it works for them, my play works for me. I don't know which one's really the best play, so I can't really talk bad about their play. But because we were newer in Florida through this hurricane, we did utilize public adjusters a lot more from an expertise perspective, but not necessarily attorneys. But once again, they have a place, and if there's a need and that needs to be done, then we'll do it. But it's not our play out the gate, and it's not what we're pushing for. If we can meet the insurance carrier and they do the right thing and we process the claim, we do it. And yeah, that's debatable out in Florida because some people say, well, you're missing out on money because you're not getting enough per square. And I'm like, we're making enough money doing it that way.
I mean, you can get more, but Why would you sometimes?
I could. Look, once again, we're not perfect. Have we used PAs? Absolutely. Do we use PAs a lot more through this hurricane simply because we were new in Florida and I was afraid that I'd have people out there doing things that they shouldn't, making mistakes, and it ends up costing and putting the business at risk? No doubt. But in Texas, for example, we hardly ever use PAs or attorneys or anyone. We meet the guys out there. Have we used them? Absolutely. Do we have certain people we use when we need someone? We let the homeowner choose.
well, that's why it's public adjusters.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I like the guys. I've got good attorney friends that do it and public adjusters that do it. So, yeah, I try and make friends with everyone. I mean, I not too long ago went to dinner with Steve Badger and his lady.
I like Steve.
Like I'm not looking to make enemies out there. I want everyone to work together, and I want everyone to make money. There's enough roofs out there. Everything needs a roof.
Everyone has a roof.
Yeah.
Exactly. Solar. Are you big in solar? Do you believe in solar? Do you guys incorporate?
Yeah. And once again, there's probably some anomalies out there that have worked. So I'm not saying what I'm about to say is a hard and fast rule. However, if you're a roofing company owner, I'd be really cautious about adding solar to your platform.
Wow.
In a lot of cases, something becomes the red-headed stepchild. And unless you're really good at certain things, that's going to be a problem because you may not have even mastered your roofing business yet. And if you haven't mastered your roofing business, why are you adding solar? And I know you're saying to yourself, well, it's just more meat off the bone because we're already there. But what's going to happen over time is something else is going to get neglected, right? The other thing I can say about solar is there's a lot of opportunities for these solar sales guys to lie. And that stuff catches up with you later. Talking about negating your bill and not having an electric bill anymore, and selling these insulation packages along with the solar, and all these things and tricks that guys are doing to get customers to do it, and then their bill comes and they still have an electric bill and a solar bill to pay for the system. Right? Like, it's interesting. But I think if I were to really just, without getting too much into the weeds, if you have not mastered your roofing company, I don't think you should add solar. Now, if you get to a point, so I don't know if you know this, but we are selling solar right now. We hired totally separate people. It's a totally separate division.
It's like brand new business.
Has nothing to do with roofing. And my roofing people can't sell it.
So you separate it. You don't want a liability. You don't want to interfere. You want to completely.
You're gonna potentially cannibalize your roofing, and I'll tell you why. So in a lot of cases, right, to get referrals on the roofing side, what do your project managers need to do? They need to go spend time at the property. They probably need to go down the day of the installation. They probably want to check on materials, good customer service, make sure that, like, by some strange reason, the wrong materials didn't get delivered. Like, sure. These are simple things that a good project manager should do, right? And I think you should encourage your guys to be there on day of install. Take progress pictures and send it to the customer, and get them engaged. Connect with the neighbors. Get referrals. If trash is running into the neighbors' yards, go pick it up. As a matter of fact, that's what I teach my guys. Knock the neighbor's door. Say, hey, my name's Johnny. I'll be doing Jimmy's roof next door tomorrow, and just want to let you know that if you see some strange dude running across your yard, it's me trying to grab a piece of paper. They drink a lot of water. There's a lot of plastic that comes out, a lot of plastic from all the shingle bags. Wind blows, something runs here. Please don't shoot me. I'm just making sure that your yard's clean.
Don't shoot me.
Right?
We're in Texas.
Yeah, it's a great icebreaker and conversation to connect with your homeowner. And then that morning, if you're there, your homeowner leaves, they see you. How you guys doing? Have a great day at work. The neighbors see you. They come back after work. They see you. Like, you're getting integrated into this community, right? And so where was I going with this point?
We were talking about solar and integrating.
Yeah. So there's all these things that like a good PM does, right? in most cases, when someone takes on solar, like a lot of people are traveling the country right now, trying to get everyone to sign up for solar, and so they're using an EPC like Titan or one of these places, right? And so really, what they're doing is selling paper.
True.
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's well said.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. If you've got a bunch of roofing guys, to be highly successful at roofing, they're doing all these things, which means they spend far more time at the property. But solar, they can actually even sell it remotely and never go there. What do you think human nature says? There's, what's the name of this book? There's a book out there, I can't think of the name, that talks about it is human nature for humans to take the path of least resistance. They want the most amount of pleasure. It's called Pleasure Trap.
Okay.
Read it. Great book, Pleasure Trap. Humans naturally want to have the most amount of pleasure, the shortest path with the least amount of resistance. It's in our DNA. It's what we want. As a matter of fact, there's a bird in Arizona that does the same shit. Seriously, this bird collects stuff, right? And in this specific species, the bird that collects the most stuff gets the more women that come sit there in front of his collection and he bangs them. He gets more women because he collects more stuff. Anyway, you got to read this book. It's a great book. And so if that's true, what's going to happen to your roofing sales? Remember, path of least resistance, right? Which one's the path of least resistance?
It's so they're going to go to solar.
Absolutely. But, and you're going to cannibalize what got you here today and what got you here. You know, it won't get you there, but it's a whole different conversation.
But there's the same thing that's happening in the roofing industry with the roofing companies who go from retail to storm chase. One storm can destroy a roofing company because now the sales guys who work one storm, they cannot go back to regular appointments. They got used to easier money. Or, you know what else I've seen a few times?
Residential to commercial.
Residential to commercial. Guy will do one job, one apartment, and shuts down residential. Like $1 million project will cancel everything he's done before, and he'll be waiting for another one, which, you know, might never come or might take 3 years to come.
Listen, solar is in you know, this whole electric, solar, you know, saving the earth, all that stuff. It's very important and it's very real.
It's a good concept,
and it is part of the future, no doubt. I'm just saying, don't be foolish and just introduce solar into your business and start getting your guys to sell it. I want to help you and say, like, structure something, do it slow, take your time. Have there been guys that have implemented it that have done well? Yes, but most of them won't because they just don't have enough of a handle on their roofing yet to introduce that. And you're going to cannibalize your roofing business. And then what's going to happen is if you don't pay attention and you don't have good customer service reps and all the rest of it on your solar side, all those solar problems are going to come out later. And then you will have made decisions not to sell as much roofing anymore. And now you start realizing that solar is more of a shit show than you thought. And what's also happening, depending on what area you're in, is guys are selling at lower and lower kilowatts. So margins are getting less and less, competition's getting higher. And so there's a lot of things in there that people need to think about before they just add solar to their business. Once again, I believe in it. I think it's awesome. I have a belief on what I think should work on it. Now, the only other exception that I think could work is if you start your business that way. So you start your business as a roofing and solar business from day one.
Got it.
Right? And you have
Then
procedures and process in place.
You'll figure it out.
Correct.
You'll figure it out.
But if you're an existing company and you got people running around the country convincing you to sign up for solar
On some seminars.
because they can make an override on getting you signed up, listen, I'm not even saying that's a bad idea. I'm just saying think a little bit. Make sure you're ready for it. Make sure you got the right stuff in place. And be careful how you handle it because you could just cannibalize your somewhat okay roofing company.
Give advice to someone, last question, give advice to someone who just getting started, first year in business, don't know where he's getting in, brand new?
Yeah, I've been asked this question before. Some people say come into business, get your systems and process and everything in place and get it all perfect and then get you rolling. But I believe, like, if you haven't figured out how to sell the darn shit, it doesn't matter what system you got in place. We did it the other way. We oversold and dealt with problems and figured out how to build around that and navigated through it. The other thing I can tell people is
learn how to sell.
Yeah, like, get your selling down. Like, I promise you, if you're someone that wants to make it and make it work, and you're out there hustling, you're going to figure that other stuff out. Or if you don't like that stuff, go hire people to do that stuff for you. Right? I'm different. I did every role in my business as it grew. I did payroll initially. I did all invoicing, AR, accounts receivable, accounts payable. I've done it all myself personally. And then I replaced myself in each role with people. And then eventually I replaced someone, my COO sort of runs the whole office now. So I'm very good at working with salespeople. I struggle with office people. Mm-hmm. I was so glad to give up that role. They're great folks, but they think different to me.
That's not your hat to wear.
No, it's not. And I struggle with them. Yeah, I get frustrated with them. It's interesting. I'd rather deal with a high maintenance sales killer than, like, an hourly, like, check in and go through the motions. Like, and that doesn't mean either one's better or worse. It's just my preference, right? I've always been able to take people that have got nothing going for them, just like me, and help them navigate through and into success. And when you can do that, you can go do anything, right? I can go do anything. I could take all our sales guys right now, and we could go sell homes tomorrow. We could go sell alarms tomorrow. We could go sell pest control tomorrow. We could go sell whatever we want, right? Is my belief. So that's from a sales perspective. The other end of that spectrum, which we did, and I see a lot of people making this mistake. Please, don't go steal the guy that you worked for's contract and paperwork. You don't know what's in it. Go get the right attorney, spend the darn money. Don't get a shitty accountant. Go spend the money, get a good accountant. Because that's all infrastructure that can kill a business. And you need to do that stuff right. We did have once on an insurance claim where we were underinsured, or there was something we missed in a policy, and I had to float over $200,000 for 18 months in the beginning of our business to fix something. The insurance company hired a high-profile attorney to scare us. I stayed the course. Eventually, I slapped a lawsuit on the insurance company, and they paid. But if I didn't have that money to float, we'd have gone out of business, right? Oh. So, infrastructure of attorneys, paperwork, that kind of stuff. Spend the money, do it right, so that you can grow your business on that foundation.
Love it. Amazing time, man. Thank you so much for flying in. He flew from Dallas this morning, and I absolutely appreciate it. So much better than any Zoom, any conversation via screen, guys. If this episode brought any value to you, give it a like for Kirt, comment below your feedback, and I'll see you guys in the next video.